first trait of an exploitive person is that they will spread lies about you. Now, we have 10 of these traits. They're in no particular order, but a person who is exploitive, somebody who wants to take advantage of you, they will do so by spreading lies about you behind your back. And sometimes, not very often, but sometimes right in front of you. But why do they do this? Why do exploitive people take advantage of those of us with Asperger syndrome or maybe those who are empaths? And the reason is it's because they are addicted to their ego and they insist on being in control. And one of the ways they control you and their environment is to spread lies. Somehow, by spreading lies, it makes them, in their eyes, seem to be in control. And you know what? In a sense, they actually are in control. So if you see somebody, or you engage somebody, or you know somebody that you know is spreading lies and gossip and rumors about other people, that may be somebody you want to stay away from, because if they're doing that to other people, do you think that they will not do that to you? That's just a personality trait. And chances are, yeah, they're going to do it to you as well. Number 2 is this trait of an exploitive person is they will cause self-doubt. One of the things they want to do, and keep in mind what is underlying all this, is an individual's desire for control. They want to be the person who is in charge. So what they will do is they will cause self-doubt in you. They will do that by undermining your self-confidence. So they want to say things to you or about you or treat you in a way that you feel less than who you should be. Now let's think of it in this way. Everybody has a sense of worth. Everybody has value, and they sense that value. That's called worth. Okay, so we have another guy. He has value too, but he doesn't sense his worth. Well, he wants to feel like he's worth something. So what he does, or maybe it's maybe she does, is she will take worth from you. Now, in their distorted way of thinking, they have more worth now because they took it from you. It's like any other commodity. Somebody has something, or you have something, and somebody else doesn't have that something, and so they steal it from you. And one of the things they steal from you is your sense of worth. The more they can make you feel down about yourself, the more they feel up about themselves. Now, just keep in mind that chances are they're not doing this just to you, they're doing it to a lot of people. So to make themselves feel good, what they do is they make other people feel bad. That is that's really frustrating, that people behave like that, but we live in a very real world. That's part of it. Something we need to learn to contend with. Number 3 is they will cause others to doubt you as well. Same thing applies. In fact, all of these points have this common thread that runs through them, is the person who has this sense of superiority, or really they don't have a sense, but they want to pretend they are superior. The common thread is that they are addicted to their ego, their deflated ego, and it's kind of like somebody who is addicted to anything. They want more of it, and they can never have enough. And the more they get, the more they want. And the more they want, the more they get. And they just keep taking and taking and taking. And one of the ways they do that, again, is to cause other people to doubt you as well. They may say that flat out to other people. There's something wrong with this guy or this woman. You need to watch out for this person. They're imputing their characteristics to you. And again, they do it to other people as well. Number 4, this is kind of a big one with me, and that is they will exploit your kindness. Now, maybe you have been in this situation before, but have you ever known a person that you have been particularly kind to? Maybe you helped them out, loaned them money, or given them a ride somewhere. I don't know what you do to people, for people, but there have been people that I've tried to help along. And what I find is it's not long before they sense that, in their distorted way of thinking, that I'm gullible. Have you ever had that experience? They see they see us as individuals, as empaths, or as people with Asperger syndrome, as individuals that they can exploit. They can take advantage of us. And that's what exploitation is all about. So if you are a person with Asperger syndrome, you got to be careful when you try to be kind to people. Yes, we should be kind to people. Don't get me wrong. But we need to be aware of the fact that people will take advantage of that kindness. So be kind to people. But if they're taking advantage of you, that's time to build the boundaries and step back. Number 5 is they impose guilt tripping. Now, by now, I think everybody on the planet is probably aware of the concept of gaslighting. That is where an individual will try to convince others that you are unstable, that there's something wrong with you. What's more is they will try to convince you that there is something wrong with you. And that's where the smear campaign develops into gaslighting, is they're just not smearing you behind your back, but they want you as well to dislike you for whatever reason. And one of the ways they do that is through guilt tripping. It's all your fault. The problem is always or nearly always you. They don't have a problem. And if they do, they will admit they have a problem just to prove that they're being objective or try to pretend to be objective. I've never actually seen anybody do that, but I guess they could. So you're being nice to these people. They are exploiting you for doing that, and then they impose a guilt trip on you as if you're not a good person, as if you're not a kind, considerate person. If someone is doing that to you, making you feel bad because you didn't do something, or you did do something, or you didn't say something, or you did say something, and it's unjustified, that's guilt tripping. Okay, that's an indication that this person is exploitive. Stay away from them. Number 6 is they are not responsible. Now, I have seen extreme cases of this throughout my life, and by the way, I'm nearing 70 years old. So I've been around for a few decades, and I've learned a thing or two, and I want to share with you some of those things that I have learned. And one of the things that I have learned is there are people out there who are just not responsible. Some of them to the extreme. I know people that won't pay their rent. Now, I'm serious. You may say, come on. But they won't pay their rent. Now, notice I didn't say they can't pay their rent. I'm saying they won't. Because to them, it is offensive. Weird. But I know people like this. I've got people, well, I'm not going to name them, but they're individuals that they have been sued multiple times, evicted multiple times because they won't pay the rent because they feel entitled. Very, very strange. They don't pay their bills. They go buy something that nearly always try to get it on credit so that they don't have to pay for it, and they don't pay for it. And if you sue them, they just don't show up in court. I know a guy that he took this thing to the extreme. He lost his home. He lost his job. He lost his, well, if he lost his job, he lost his paycheck. He lost virtually everything, but it was all to uplift his ego. What does that sound like? Well, it sounds to me like someone who's addicted to drugs. They do the same thing. So what is the difference between being addicted to one's ego or being addicted to one's drugs, or being addicted to drugs? These people are irresponsible. What's more, they're not responsible for blame. They're always the good guy. And what's more, they're not responsible for anything. Doesn't matter who they hurt, how they hurt them, and they think they're smart, to hurt people. But they never accept the blame. They're not responsible for anything. Their own condition. It's always somebody else's fault. Number 7, they make you out to be the bad guy. Now, I call this flipping. That is, you have somebody who has ripped you off, ripping off other people, who hurts people, and somehow they create a new narrative in which you are the person who is really the bad person. Now, you may be alone with this person for long periods of time, and they will make up stories about what happened when you were alone with this person. How that you were so mean, you were unkind, you were inconsiderate. And this happens a lot of time in romances where two individuals, a man and a woman, are together alone. And I've seen this in some marital relationships. You're home alone. Nobody knows. I mean, your kids may be there. They don't know what's going on. And so one or the other, or maybe both of the spouses, will make up stories about the other. And of course, the other is always the bad guy, and the person making the accusations is always the good guy or good girl. How do you know? Well, if the person making the accusations is particularly gifted and personable and charismatic, that's the person everyone's going to believe. Keep in mind, there's always two sides to every story. And those two sides are the right side and the wrong side. That's why we have a judicial system, so we can sift through this and figure it out. Number 8, they hide their exploitation and their manipulation. So they will exploit people, they will manipulate people. But one of the things they are particularly good at is they are particularly good at hiding what they do. Now, I know a guy, I mentioned it before, who has been taken to court dozens of times. Not an exaggeration. I mean, dozens of times. And he never mentioned it to anybody. Unless you happen to check the public records, you would never know that. That's called lying by omission. But they take it a step further, is they not only lie by omission, but they will try to isolate you. Now that's what that's what the smear campaign is all about. They want to break your social contacts with other people by making you look like the bad guy so other people stay away from you. Making you, remember the flipping? Making you look like them. So what happens is you become isolated. You have fewer and fewer and fewer friends because others mistrust you. Because they have made you out to be the bad guy. And that happens quite frequently. You would be surprised how adept these people are at convincing others that you are the bad guy. And the reason is because we're just believers. People with Asperger syndrome, probably more so than others, and individuals who are empaths, probably more so than others, but we're just gullible. You know, faith comes by hearing. And if somebody says, hey, speaking of you, they say, hey, this guy or this woman is a bad person, people believe them. And they make up a little story, a little narrative that goes along with it, and that narrative. That story they make up that makes you out to be the bad guy, nearly always, I've never seen an exception to this rule, but nearly always, they make themselves the hero. And again, that's flipping. So the bad guy becomes the good guy, and the good guy becomes the bad guy. And we believe them. You would be amazed how many people fall for that just because they heard it. They don't do any background checks whatsoever. Very few people stop to consider maybe this person is lying, particularly if they like that person. That, by the way, is one of the reasons that narcissists make themselves so likable, because they use their likability as leverage to manipulate people. People will believe them because, well, they like them. They trust them. Number 9, they will explain things when they get caught. Just a big misunderstanding. Big misunderstanding. Well, I haven't paid my rent for 9 months, but it's all a big misunderstanding. Now, I've heard people say that before. Maybe not in those words, but they have a story. They always have a backstory. It's a lie, usually, or it's distorted, or it's embellished, but they have a backstory to explain away whatever it happens to be. And they spend a lot of time. Some of these people, a lot of time. Listen, folks, they invest almost all of their resources in creating this lie that is surrounding them. Number 9, again, they will say, it's just a big misunderstanding. People believe them. Number 10, they pretend to be reasonable. They come across as sane. They do. They come across as sane, reasonable, responsible. Even though they may not have a place to live. They may be homeless. They may have not paid their utility bill, so their utilities are shut off. Even though they have resources, or they could have resources to pay those things, they just don't do it. But somehow they present themselves as being reasonable. And again, they got that backstory. They got tales to tell. They invest a considerable amount of brain power. And some of these people are, by the way, they're not all stupid. Some of them are very smart. Think of the Who is that Ponzi schemer? I can't think of his name. Bernie Madoff. Highly, highly, highly intelligent. Often wonder, why did he do that? The guy could have been a multimillionaire, honestly. But again, it's ego addiction. Why is somebody strung out on drugs all the time? They could have such a much better life. Well, it's an addiction. It's an ego addiction. So they come up with these stories that make them sound reasonable. Well, there's a reason, why I'm addicted. It's because, well, I was abused. Some people, are abused and they do wind up being addicted to whatever. But is that a reasonable excuse? I mean, is there no other option? Well, maybe not, but that would be a very rare instance. And the same thing with someone who is a narcissist or a psychopath. They're trying to be reasonable. They're trying to appear to be reasonable because, again, they got this backstory that, and we buy it. What you see on the screen, a couple rectangles. Now, if you click on those, you can continue this conversation. We just go on and on as long, well, it stops when you want it to. So click on the rectangles and let's keep going.